Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Charles from the channel Books on Stereo, and I'm here to bring you guys a really, really special guest, Andi Arndt. If you do not know who Andi Arndt is, you need to check your audiobook listening life because I think you probably have listened to probably like 10 to 15 of her books. She's an audiobook, I believe, Audio Award winner as well.
It's
So
true.
I'm like, come on, you guys. I'm so incredibly thankful that Andi decided to come on my channel and just talk about her career as a narrator and also a little bit about her own audiobook production company. We'll get into that a little bit later. But first, Andi, I want to ask you my first question, which is how did you get into narrating audiobooks?
Well, I have a background in both theater and broadcasting. And so I think, when you put those two things together, one of the things that you might be good at is audiobook narrating.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
I started with a company as a proof listener.
okay.
And I did that for, I think, a couple years while I was getting my own training. And so I heard a lot of other narrators in depth, let's just say, and the good, the bad, and I learned some lessons of like things to do and things not to do. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and so how did you, I feel like your name is kind of synonymous with romance. How did you kind of find your way into narrating a lot of romance audiobooks? I know you do other genres, but I
Yeah,
feel like your bread and butter, everyone knows Andi Arndt or like from really the romance genre.
it has become that way.
Yeah.
And I didn't really set out to do that, but what I tried to do early in my career is just be open to almost like genre buffet. If somebody came to me and thought that I was a good fit for something, I would try to say yes, and
Mhm.
see what that thing was and if I liked it and if it liked me. And so I got assigned Kylie Scott's Lick, which
Oh,
Passion Flicks
yeah.
is now making into a movie.
Yes.
And that was kind of a funny story because a producer that I'd been working for maybe a year or so sent me this book. Hey, Macmillan wants you to do this book. Let me know, yes or no. And so then, like 5 minutes later, I get this frantic email from him saying, I just want you to know, like, we thought it was YA, um, but it's not. And there might be some, explicit material. And just please make sure that you're okay with that.
Mhm.
And it was the first time I'd really had to think about would I or not. And I was just like, yeah, sure. Let's let's see what that's all about. And I mean, the rest is history. So
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. Because I really wanted to ask about that because I feel like your name, like I said, is so synonymous with romance. I wondered if that was like an intentional move for you to like go into romance because you have tons of audiobooks with like Lauren Blakely, who is huge in the audiobook space. I think almost every book that have seen come across, I'm like, oh, Andy are narrating this one, narrating this one, narrating this author's book. I'm like, if I just see your name on an audiobook, I'm like one click buy. I don't even
oh,
have to
thank
know who the
you.
author is because I know the performance is going to be really good.
Well, I try to earn that every day, um, earn my way into your ears. So,
And I trust me, I have a lot of your audiobooks on my phone.
well, I am very grateful, as are the
Yeah.
authors for whom I narrate.
And then I also wanted to ask you, I believe it was either last year, you came out with your own co-authored book, Heidi's four letter guide to words.
There's a Heidi's Guide to Four-Letter
Right,
Words.
to four-letter words. I always mess up the title. So what kind of inspired you to kind of make the change from narrator to author?
So, let's see. A few years ago, I was at the RT conference, which they don't do anymore,
Mhm.
in Atlanta, and the official day was over, and a couple of other narrators and I had like a triple room that we shared that had, the living room and so our room was sort of the gathering place, and we had some wine. And at RT, when you get your swag bag, everybody gets a different book. So I was like, all right, we're gonna play a game. Everybody go get your book that came in your bag and turn to a random page and pick an accent and go. And so, I mean, we had like French and Russian and German and Southern and like all this stuff. And I busted out my Minnesota because that's where I grew up. And people were like peeing themselves laughing. So it just kind of stuck in my head. And then over time, as we thought back on it and laughed about it, she ended up having a name, which was very close to Heidi, but we ended up changing it to Heidi. So we just would talk about this character. And it just sort of she took on a life of her own. And then Audible Originals heard me talking about it, and that, you know, she had become a whole character, and how funny would that be if she had her own book. And Audible Originals set me up with Tara Civic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they said,
Oh,
you
okay.
know, we think that this would be a really good match, and you guys, you know, what do you think? And we got to know each other and we hit it off. And so then we worked on the book together, and the rest is history. So,
So that's really cool. And how was the process like, just being solely a narrator? How that did you kind of like work through some of the parts when you were writing the book, like the banter to see if it would land in audio? Did it change your process at all?
well, Tara really she did the heavy lifting when it came to
Mhm,
like the connective tissue of the book.
mhm,
So the podcast parts, that was me. And
mhm.
I would go in the booth that's here to the right of my desk and just start kind of riffing. You know, we need this kind of an episode. Okay, I'm going to pretend that I've had too much wine, and what would she do? And there was one key moment of the plot that's not a podcast episode that I did write. Um, and sent it to her, and she's like, I'm not changing a thing, this is perfect, we're putting it in. So, and I felt really good about that. But most of what I contributed was like a sense of who Heidi is and what she would do and not do. And so Tara would send me like, what do you think about this? And usually it was just like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Every once in a while I'd say, well, this doesn't quite, could we do this? And it was collaborative in that way.
Oh yeah, that's really cool because I feel like narrators almost have like a really like heavy job of kind of directing or kind of creating the character for the readers instead
Hmm.
of when you read a book, the reader kind of comes with their own preconceived notions like, oh, I imagine this is how the character would sound, how they
Hmm.
would think, especially for romance with the internal thoughts and the internal monologue. That's I feel like that's a really big part of the romance genre, and it's really the narrator to help bring those to life because when reading them I absolutely hate reading them. I'm like, okay, where's the dialogue? Let me get to the dialogue. But in narration, I'm like, okay, I get it. There's like a rhythm and a pacing to it. And the
Yeah.
audiobook is absolutely fantastic, by the way. I didn't say
Oh,
that enough.
thank you.
All my friends love it. We all love it. And I
Yay.
have a follow up question is that are you going to ever think about doing another co authored book or writing another book in the future?
I mean, it's always a possibility. So never say never.
Never say never? Okay. Because I'm really curious to see if you come up with another one because I think it would be absolutely amazing. I'm loving all my favorite narrators coming and writing their own books or like co-authoring books. Like we have
Oh
Joe
yeah,
Arden
Aaron
and Aaron
Mallon and
Mallon,
Aaron Spencer. Yep.
and there's such a unique perspective that you guys bring to the table is that you can automatically see like, okay, that won't work in audio. Maybe
Mm.
let's try this. That joke won't land like that banter won't land and it's really yeah so I really love the audiobooks because I'm like I think audiobooks are the best way of experiencing a book
Well,
in a lot of ways especially for romance when you have a
mm,
really great narrator. I always say like if it's a bad narrator it can ruin the whole entire book, but that's why I think when I have my selected groups in of narrators that you are a part of, it's like, wow, like I feel at home. Like I can just trust that Andy's gonna lead me through the story. She may get me emotional at times depending on the story, but I know it's gonna be a good time.
yeah, sometimes I'll go when I'm preparing a book, I'll go to reviews of the ARC and see if any of the readers said like anything was confusing to them or they didn't quite get, because I think
Mhm,
a narrator's performance can clarify
mhm,
the sort of emotional journey that a character is going through in a way that kind of lifts some things up from the text.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and going off of that, how do you normally like prep a book to get ready to record? Do you read through the whole book or you just kind of take it in chunks? Like, what is your normal process when recording an audiobook?
Well, it depends who I'm working with, and because some authors send extensive notes, exactly what they want as far as accents, or you should know that this character's sort of nature is this way. Um, and I just went back and forth with an author about, um, in this chapter, I want more, I want more of this. I'm not quite getting enough of
Mhm,
this. Um,
mhm,
but as far as the usual prep, if
mhm,
it's an author I've worked with before, so I know their style, I know like
mhm.
Keelan and Penelope Ward, I know how their books
Yes.
feel.
Yeah.
So then my job becomes, what is this story? Who are these
Mhm,
people? Where
mhm,
are they? How old are they? What is their job? How do they meet? And I'm looking at one of the ways I like to prep is to read the first three chapters and the last three chapters.
mhm,
Because with romance, we know that we're going to that happily ever after.
mhm.
And sometimes epilogues will give you everything. Like there was one that I read where the epilogue was literally a couple walking around in the house that they fixed up together, going down memory lane and saying, "Remember in this room when you
Oh,
said this, and that was the moment that I really knew you loved me." And then, "Oh, remember when I fell down in the middle of the night in this room?" And so then when I go back through the book, you know,
it's
I
all laid out for you.
yeah,
Okay.
but I try not to over prepare either. Like I need to know
Mhm,
what I need to know what the fight is about. And
mhm,
at the climax of the plot, I need to know like how it gets resolved, by whom, when, like what is that moment, so that that's peak,
mhm,
that's the peak.
mhm.
Because you don't want to peak too early or save it and realize, whoops,
Yeah.
that was the peak and I could have
Mhm.
gone there. So I like to almost think of it as like a sketch that I color in as I'm actually performing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. It's really interesting because I always wonder, like, especially when you have different voices for different characters and switching between like a male voice, a lot of times some narrators just like don't they just like keep the voice the same, everything's they don't give different characters different voices. Like, do you find any difficulty with like if there's a lot of different characters or they have different accents kind of jumping around and nailing those characters' tones so you're like, okay, I know who that character is, or I know who that character is, or I know who's speaking without saying said this character after the
Mhm.
dialogue.
Well, as far as moment to moment, your eyes are tracking just slightly ahead of what you're
Mhm,
saying, and that's what most of us do when we read, really, is,
mhm,
if we're reading out loud, our eyes are always it's like when you're driving, you're looking further
mhm.
down the road, you're not looking right below the car, you know?
Yeah.
And so you develop this ability to see out of your almost peripheral vision who's talking, and even little, modifiers like whispered or murmured, so that you don't, shout
Mhm.
something and then be like, "He whispered. Whoops.
You whisper.
Oops."
I
Um, so as far as, like, keeping voices separate, I use a lot of physicality, and if a character really reminds me of somebody that I know, that helps, you know? It's like
Yeah.
puppet show in my head.
And then do you find that, especially with the popularity of audiobooks, do you find that authors, like, specifically write characters in mind for you to narrate
Sometimes.
sometimes?
Yeah. And the other day, I was working on a Kylie Scott book. I'm not sure when it's gonna come out, but, she has minor characters that she'll name after, like, people in her Facebook group or whatever,
Mhm.
and there was a waitress named Andi, spelled the way that I spell it,
Really?
and so the waitress, Andi, comes in, and somebody at the table says, "You're looking especially radiant today, Andi." I got to compliment myself with Kylie's words, and I just had a moment.
That must be, like, so cool, especially because I know, like, Lauren Blakely is, like, really big on the audiobooks, and she will cast people according to, like so I'm like, like the Shane Easton and MM book. I was like, Lauren Blakely, like you're doing, like you're just giving me every book. Like I just need more of you guys. I love seeing how she like plays with you guys and kind of tailors the voices to the specific characters and to your narration styles. Another question I wanted to ask is, especially with audiobooks becoming more and more bigger productions, especially with like duet, dual, and then multicast. I wonder, especially during the pandemic or pre-pandemic, how's that affected your recording process when you're working with like probably a larger team?
Well, you mentioned Shane East, and I don't know if you heard the bloopers at the end of Instant Gratification.
Yes, I did.
'Cause I'll never forget the one where I'm supposed to be, like, knocking on his door all seductive. You're like, "Wait, I sound like I'm the cleaning lady. Hold on, let me do that again." Not quite the mood. Before the pandemic, those multicast, ones that I produced for Lauren Blakely, who has her own production company now, so she's been able to take everything
Okay.
in-house, and so I can just narrate and, you know,
Mm,
all the hard work
yeah,
is done. But
that.
with the multicast ones, she and I have this joke about how, like, I'm the master of spreadsheets
Oh,
because
really?
I'll take, like, who's in what scene and figure out how not to waste people's time, like,
Oh,
blocks of time when these people are in scenes, but then this person is not needed anymore and they can, like, head out, and then we bring this person in, and I have it all plotted out, so
it's
yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, so
And does
those
it
are the
take it
most
any
popular.
longer?
Hmm?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I
Yeah.
wanted to ask, like, do this take longer to actually record, or do they take about the same time as like just like your normal solo narration?
Instant gratification was 2 full days in the studio.
Uh,
2 2 full days in the studio.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So the first day was, like, the everybody party day, and the next day was just me and Shane.
Oh, okay. I didn't. I was like wondering how you guys like manage the whole schedule because like I feel like it's a lot, especially if a minor character only really has maybe like two scenes
Mhm.
in the whole entire book. Kind of juggling that with a full multicast, so they don't have a ton of dialogue.
Right. Right.
I was really wondering like the nuts and bolts of that because I love multicast and I think a lot of people who are not into audiobooks, those are the easiest to sell them on because like more like a movie or you have like sound effects or something like that. It's a bit easier to get into. I don't know why it's not hard to get into audiobooks anyways, but I do like to recommend those to people. But and then also I wanted to switch a little bit gears and talk about your own production company, Lyric. Where did that idea kind of start from, or why did you decide to start this your own production company?
It's so crazy because I never in my life thought that I would, like, own a business. So that has been fascinating and very rewarding. But the way that it started is that I had developed a reputation as a popular romance narrator. And so a lot of authors were coming to me, and my schedule would be full. And I would think, well, gosh, I feel bad just saying no. Like,
Yeah.
I know all these other narrators who are great at romance. And what if I said, I'm not available, but I can produce it for you because I know, like, the varsity squad of romance narrators, and
Yes.
we're friends with each other, and, we can make it work. Um, and so a lot of authors said, "Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll let you produce with other people, and then maybe you can do my book, like, the next one," you know. And now we work for several dozen authors, and we've produced hundreds of titles. And we've won awards for our productions, and it's just like a fairy tale.
Oh my, that's it's just amazing, like to see like the growth of your company. I was like, oh, that's so cool seeing like a narrator actually take ownership in the business instead of like somebody like Audible. Audible's a huge player in the game, but it's like really nice to see like other people like getting in there, doing their own production companies, creating audiobooks and creating that content without necessarily going through, I believe it's ACX is
Yes.
Audible's program, to
Yes.
like find narrators and produce audiobooks. And I think the quality of your narrators that you have for like really popular titles, some I didn't know that came through. Like I'm like, wait, they produced that Kendall Ryan book. I was like,
Mhm.
hold up. I was like, no wonder why. Like I see the names. I'm like, I love both these narrators. I'm just like anything with like there's like certain narrators like that. I would just go like out of my way. I'm like, I'll use all my Audible credits all at once.
Well, if you want to know what releases we have coming out that are our productions, we do have an Instagram and a Twitter and a Facebook page and all the things. So you can, whatever is your preferred, besides YouTube, obviously, whatever is your preferred social media platform for book news, just follow at Lyric Audiobooks. And Ashley, who does all of our social media, is amazing, and she brands all of our new release posts. So you'll always know when we have a new title coming out.
Yeah, and I will link that down in the description box so everyone can go and follow you guys and keep up to date because I know almost all my viewers love audiobooks because it's my whole channel thing. Like, if you don't love audiobooks, I'm like, sorry, go to another channel. If someone gives me an arc, even for my favorite romance authors, I'm like, can I wait till the audiobook drops? Or when will the audiobook drop? I'm like, then I'll read it then. But don't make me read the physical book. Especially if I know who's gonna be narrating. I'm like, can you tell me, like, can you give me like that's why like I love when Aaron gave me an early advanced copy of Love Book. I was like, yes. I was like, like it would take me forever to read the physical arc. But the audiobook, I was like, in a day, done. And then another question that I wanted to ask you is, how did the industry change since when you started narrating audiobooks to the current audiobook times right now?
Well, I mean, the growth of the audiobook sector of the publishing industry has really been every year the statistics come out on how many titles the industry as a whole released out into the world. And the first year that I narrated, I think it was like something like 11,000 titles had been released that year because it's been like 10 years that I've been doing this now. And I just looked it up the other day because I was curious what the latest stats were. And in 2019, 60,303 audiobooks were released in 2019.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
So when
That
people are
is,
like, I want you to narrate all the books, I'm like, I'd be dead.
but like, can you narrate all
No,
the all,
I
all the
cannot
books?
narrate.
I have like books that I want audiobooks from. I'm like, maybe if I send these to Andy, she can hook me up with audiobook. She can like fit it in her busy schedule. I just narrate these books for me.
We're always joking about like auctioneer audiobooks presents, like, because I know some of y'all listen on 2.0 and 2.5 and all that stuff.
Yes. That was gonna be another question that I wanted to ask. Like, I'm guilty. Sometimes I'm like a three times listener, 3.5,
Wow.
and people think I'm absolutely crazy. They're like, it sounds like gibberish. Sometimes I'm like, no. Like, if you listen like to a ton of audiobooks, you end up just kind of gradually. And I'm like 3.5. I'm like, I get the whole story. I'm like, but I feel like as a narrator, I'm doing you guys a disservice. Because I'm just like
Well,
hitting a 3.5. Do you keep that in mind when you're recording,
I do
knowing
in
that
the
people might
sense
speed
that,
you up?
okay, so the sort of conventional wisdom when I came into the industry was that there's a certain pace that you need to slow down because people are doing other things while you're speaking and you don't want to lose them. But there's also research that shows that people's attention wanders when you go too slowly. It leaves their brain space to do other things. And if you speed up a little bit, they have to attend because they need to stay with you. So I guess the way that I feel is I had a great theater director one time who said, you should move at the speed of thought. And
Mhm.
people think very quickly, right?
Oh, okay. Mhm.
So I try to move at the speed of thought, keep it moving. Then if I keep most of it moving, then if there's a big moment, I can
Mhm.
slow it down so that like if your mind did wander, you know like, whoa, what's going on? Something's going on. And I guess I figure if people are going to speed me up anyway, then I can just go as fast as the hell I want.
Yeah. I just like I felt really bad. I was like, I'm one of those people that like the three times. I was like, I feel like narrators like don't like to hear that.
I mean, once you've bought the book, it's yours to listen to however you wish,
Mhm.
right? I mean, the
Yeah.
settings are there. You're not supposed to use them.
Hmm. Yeah.
Just
I
don't tell me.
usually I completely agree about your mind wandering. I remember I think my library used to have like a ton of audiobooks, but they this selection is not as good now, and they only go up to two times speed. And I remember it took me, I had to rewind multiple chapters because I was just like, my mind would just wander. I would
Mm,
just like focus on watching TV or like talking to someone else. And then I'm like, wait, I missed like two chapters of the book. I'm like, what happened?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah.
definitely agree. Like, it helps click a little bit faster, but I definitely feel like sometimes now I'm starting to shift more into like, I want to really savor the narration.
Well, I
Because
saw
sometimes I feel
on
like
your,
go
like,
3.5, I just
books
miss.
the books that you're looking forward to reading in 2021, you mentioned The
Mhm,
Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett,
mhm,
and
mhm.
that's my current listen, Shayna Small's narration of that. And,
Oh, okay.
I mean, I would never wanna speed her up. It's just delicious.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I haven't gotten to it yet. I have the physical book, like, just staring at me, but
Oh, do the audio. She's so good.
oh, audio?
Yes,
Okay,
she's so
okay.
good. She's so good.
Yeah, like, I'm bad, especially since I'm, like, a big romance reader. I turn my head away and I'm like, "Oh, Andi Arndt and Kendall Ryan and, like, Lauren Blakely just released, like, 5 new books." I'm like, "Ah, I'm already behind."
It's
I was
okay.
like, "Cursed romance writers," and the audiobook comes out so quickly. I'm trying to go read my like nonfiction or my literary fiction book, and then I'm like, I turn around and there's like 5 new romance releases that I'm like, I have to listen to these. I have to.
Mhm.
But switching, giving some more like a funner question. What are some audiobooks that you've been like loving or really enjoying so far this year?
Well, I don't have as much time to listen as I might
Mhm.
like. So, I bought The Vanishing Half, and I think I'm, like, 4 hours into it, and it's been, like, a month.
Oh
So,
wow.
I mean, because I come in here, I'm thinking about the book I'm working on, I go in, I read the book, I'm in the book, and, that takes a lot of focus and energy. So sometimes I'm kinda talked out, by the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day,
Mm-hmm.
even, like, other people talking.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of my dog walking, laundry folding, but then I don't like to listen when anybody's with me. So if I'm folding laundry and I hear somebody coming, one of my family members coming toward
Mhm.
me, I'll like pause it because it's my book. I don't want somebody saying what's going on in this book or.
That's true. That's true. I feel like with romance, it made me like perpetually like wear headphones,
Mhm.
especially someone walks in on a steamy scene. I'm like, pause, 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 pause. I was like, sorry, like, don't catch me at the wrong moment. I'm like, I don't want my grandmother walking in and then saying like, what are you listening to? I'm
Yeah, I mean,
like,
okay,
don't
so
make me explain.
I got my phone right here. Let me look at my book because I've heard you talk about Libro FM, and I'm so glad because I
Hmm.
think Libro FM is awesome. So I've got The Vanishing Half. I bought Beach Read because that was recommended to me, but I haven't
That's
listened to
really
it
good.
yet.
That's really good.
And then in my Audible, let me look at that. That one I actually am on. I'm paused on my membership,
Uh,
so it's gonna make me sign in. It's gonna take too long. But I tend to actually listen to like memoirs. I love all of Carrie
okay.
Fisher's
Hmm.
stuff that's narrated by her and also her daughter. It's just so fantastic. Her writing, her narration, it's just really, really good.
Are there any other genres that you're big in listening to besides nonfiction or sorry, memoirs?
Um, Literary fiction, if there's a big romance release, like, of course, I
Mhm.
listened to, like, when we were done with These Walls Can Talk.
Yeah.
Aaron was kind enough to like send me how it came out, and
Ah,
I definitely loved listening to that. And if I'm checking out new voices, I'll dip in and out of stuff, but my listening is kind of all over the place. My husband's a history professor,
okay.
so if he tells me about a book, I'll go listen to that. I'm kind of a sampler, I guess. I don't have a particular
Okay.
genre that I follow.
Genre.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. If you want to get more into historicals, I recommend Eric Larson. Any
Okay.
of his books are really, really good. They're they read almost like not they read almost like fiction, almost like your mystery thriller, like Dave
Yeah.
Baldacci, like those kind of big adult writers. But it's so I would say recommend The Devil in the White City.
Oh,
That's
oh,
about a
yeah.
serial murder. I think it's being turned into a movie. I think
Ooh.
so. And
Now,
then The Killers of Osage County by
okay.
David Graham. That's a really good one as well.
Oh, thank you. I'm thinking about what I was listening to last summer. I got into an Icelandic crime noir kick. And
Ooh.
so there's this Icelandic crime noir novelist named Ragnar Jonasson, and he wrote a book called that's not the island. Is it the island? Um, his main character in those is a woman named Hulda Hermannsdottir, and she's kind of an unlikely investigator.
Oh, okay.
Um, she's not a cuddly character. She's
Okay.
a kind of a prickly character, but she's a very interesting character. And no, I don't think this is a spoiler, but it's a series, but the first book in the series is at the end of the timeline.
Oh,
So then
that's
as the
interesting.
books, it is, so then as the books go on, you're like, oh, now this is Hulda in the 70s. And what she doesn't realize
Oh.
is here's what her future has in store for her that we know that she doesn't know.
Oh, that's really interesting to approach a series, starting
Yeah.
with the end and then working your way backwards. Huh.
Except
That's really
it's
cool
not
because then
exactly backwards. He starts leapfrogging all over her timeline.
oh, okay.
Yep.
Oh, that's really cool. I definitely need to check that one out. Like I'm usually like I used to be a big mystery thriller person like Gillian Flynn. Um some of the other ones like Paula Hawkins, like the big buzzy Ruth Ware. Really
Hmm.
I used to be really, really big in those genres, but then I discovered romance and then it just kind of took me away.
As
And
it
like I try to keep in touch with the thrillers, but I'm like Gone Girl, that was probably my favorite
yeah.
thriller that I've ever read. And it's like I still can't like there still isn't like a book that just like gives me that really kind of anti like hero like really kind of bad like feminine character who's just like unapologetic. She just knows what she wants. Like oh like the main hero in that book is just absolutely amazing.
Oh yes. And I love the whole thing about the cool girl. That section of that
Yeah.
book is just like, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh man, I was like, what a great twist on like a story that you see in headlines so much, but then she just orchestrates this all. And then at the end, oh, I can't spoil. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't read it. I
What?
don't want people to yell at me in the comment section. I was like, but you should have. This has been a movie. It's been out for a long time. But I just love the ending in that one because it's like it's so bleak. It's like I just love that. Like it's like a stark contrast to my romance and my happily ever afters. But
That's
like
the
sometimes I
Icelandic
miss those
thing.
endings.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, Iceland, come on, talk about,
yeah.
there's not trees really. So,
Oh,
um,
and then I just had two questions that popped into my head. One is how many accents can you do? Can you do British? Can you do like a German? How
well,
many accents have you done so
some people would
far?
dispute that I can do British. So I get by enough to like parallel Shane when we work together. Um, well, I don't do a lot of like European accents, for example. I've studied Spanish. I studied 5 years of Spanish and I've traveled, I've been to Spain. I've traveled a little bit in Mexico where, you like a chance to kind of refresh my Spanish. I've studied Italian. I studied Mandarin. Um, so, there are things that I can, and I've studied Dutch and lived in the Dutch speaking world. So I can pronounce vocabulary, place names and names and stuff, but that's different than doing an accent.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I did a book that was by a Dutch playwright. It was fascinating. It was called In Search of a Name. And that just came out in the last several months. And I got assigned that because it says Dutch in my talent profile for casting, because I can handle the words themselves. But then I got offered another book and they said, well, we need a Dutch accent. That,
Oh, okay.
no. And
No.
Australian, I have to write out phonetically or I can't do it.
Mhm.
Um, so my accent repertoire is much more like American regional accents, I would say. Pardon me, Miller.
Okay. And then the other question, I was really curious, since you mentioned your schedule is normally really packed,
Mm-hmm.
how many do you just do one audiobook at a time, or do you do multiple audiobooks in a given time frame? There's just so many requests for so many audiobooks coming out.
I need a cough drop. One at a time. I'm a serial monogamous when it comes to my books. I'm a one at a time girl, for sure.
I was just curious, like, do you like hop around, like jump into one book one day, do another book, since you so many audiobooks narrated by you come out like probably I would say like on like
Mm-hmm.
a couple weekly basis. I'm like there's usually always like a new Andi Arndt title coming out, whether it's like just you or it's like a duet. I read The Rivals, I think, which is one of the newest by Keelan that you narrated with, I think Shanice, was it? I think so. But yeah. But then, yes, my final question for you, since I don't want to keep you too long, is we're all been kind of quarantined. We've all been stuck at home. So I just want to ask everyone that I interview, what have been some of your favorite movies, or you can say TV shows that you've been enjoying if you had any time. If you don't, that's completely fine during quarantine.
Yeah. I don't know why my voice just went woo.
No, it's okay. I don't want to be the one that broke Andi Arndt's voice during
No.
during an interview.
Can I type it in the chat?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to type it. Ta-da. Hold on.
Ooh. Okay. Okay. So we got Queen's Gambit and Lovecraft Country. I think I watched one episode of Lovecraft and I was kind of blown away, but I never actually finished it. You haven't watched Bridgerton yet?
My husband and I watched one episode. And the cool
Oh,
thing about that
so
is
good.
he's not, he likes, romantic movies, but he's not a romance reader. And so
Mhm.
we were starting to watch it and he's like, I said, guess what trope that is? And he's like,
Yeah.
fake relationship.
You will absolutely love Bridgerton. It's so good.
Well,
Like,
and I'm nominated for an Audie in the same category as Adjoa Ando. So I'm just like,
oh
what?
really? That's
What?
amazing.
She was nominated for Get a Life, Chloe Brown.
Oh, so good.
Mm-hmm.
So good. Like
Yeah.
the audiobooks in the romance genre specifically are so so good. Like just in general, I think more than other genres because I feel like most romance people really like their audiobooks and are very vocal to
Yes.
the authors. I'm like, this audiobook did not work for me.
And then the last one that because I wanted to mention that I finally saw Fleabag,
Oh, that's so good.
and it like changed my life. I loved it.
That's so good.
Yep.
So good. I would say my favorite so far, I would say WandaVision is like the
I
big one
haven't
everyone's watching right now. I
started it
just finished it. I just finished it. I had mixed feelings, but I liked it overall. I hated that I had to wait week to week to week to week to week.
Uh,
Like, I wish I just waited and just like binged all the episodes all at once.
Now, do you have to like Marvel to like WandaVision?
Yeah, you really do. I would say you have to at least see the last, like I think Endgame and Infinity War to make sense of WandaVision.
Okay, because I've seen Endgame, but not Infinity Wars. Because I'm in the Actors Union, so every year, whatever's nominated for a SAG award,
Mhm.
I watch. So this year, I've watched
Oh,
One Night in Miami so far. We just watched Hillbilly Elegy last night. Um, we started watching Ted Lasso because that's nominated in comedy, and that's cute.
I heard that's really good. I heard that's really good.
It's cute. It's cute.
Yeah.
I don't watch a lot of sitcoms. I don't know
Okay.
why. I like more like dramatic television. So
hmm Yeah, I would say. Oh, another show I forgot that's blowing up that I'm really loving is Ginny and Georgia. Georgia.
oh, okay.
It's really like if you like Gilmore Girls,
Okay.
it's kind of just like a modern day refresh of that show.
Did you watch Dairy Girls?
No, I haven't.
Okay, it's like dairy in Ireland, Derry,
Oh,
not like,
like I was gonna say, I don't think she means like dairy as in milk, milk.
No. No, although that reminds me, there's this like dairy in the area where I live, and they do these cute local commercials about their homemade ice cream and their milk and all this stuff, and they're like, Shenandoah Creamery, we're pulling for you. It's like, it's just so cute.
Oh my! Now I need to watch. Now I need to watch the show. Um, I'm like actively looking for shows that I can watch that are a little bit lighthearted. I feel like I watched a couple of dramatic shows. I'm like, I need a break. I need
Yeah.
lightness.
Yeah, I mean, my kind of like I need a break is when I watch like Fleabag because it's
Mhm.
like wicked funny.
Oh yeah,
So,
so good, so good.
it,
The hot priest joke. I feel
I
like
mean,
everyone knows that show from that.
but it's like every single episode, just
Yep.
it's so fast. Like you were talking about listening on, her brain just is like,
Mhm.
wouldn't you love to
Yeah,
be inside her brain just for like 10
I
minutes?
would. I really would. Like, it would probably scare me sometimes, but I would absolutely love it.
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
for sure.
But are there any new audiobook releases that you've narrated that you can plug for us before I wrap us up?
Well, let's see. Let me see what I did because I've got my calendar here. I just did a Kylie Scott, and I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about it yet. The re-release of Jessica Hawkins' Cityscape series
Ooh.
is happening, and those are the first books that I did for her. So it's Come Undone, Come Alive, and Come Together. So those are about to be re-released. So that's with all new covers and actually all new audio.
Oh, so you re-recorded the whole, was that a cool
Yeah,
experience?
yeah. I've never had that experience before where she substantially revised book one.
Mhm,
And so I knew I was going to have to re-record book one because she had changed it, a lot.
mhm,
And at first we were like, well, books two and three really are not that different, but
mhm,
my voice is different because my
mhm.
editor went back and listened to books two and three and he said, you know what, you had a really bad bout of allergies when you were recording those and your voice is not going to match. So we went
Mhm.
ahead and did books two and three. Um, and then I've been working with Lauren Rowe on some more books
Ooh.
in her River Records world. And I have some like thrillers coming out. So there's one that I got to do called Girl 11, Girl, comma 11. And that is set in Minneapolis. And since I'm from there, the producer came to me and said, you've got the Minnesota thing. Can you get by with like a Spanish accent at all? Because there's a
Oh,
character who's Mexican.
this,
So I was
yeah,
like, yeah, I studied Spanish for 5 years. I think I can,
you
do
can
it.
handle it.
Yeah. And so it's about a podcaster, which is so funny because like Heidi, like
Ideas about.
there's the box of wine, right? And this podcaster actually starts her podcast after having too much wine in this thriller, which I was like, what?
I was like,
So
I feel like someone wrote this specifically with you in mind.
yeah, so she has like a crime solving podcast where she'll do a cold case for a season. And there's the countdown killer in this book is like
Ooh.
killing women who are like 20, then 19, then 18, then 17. And that's why it's called Girl 11 because it's like counting down and
Okay, I need to read that. That
oh,
sounds really, really good.
good. It was good.
Oh my. I need to like put that on my pre-orders so I make sure that I have it so I don't forget about it because I've been in the mood for a really great thriller lately.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was great. And I couldn't, as far as the like who done it aspect,
You couldn't guess?
I couldn't guess.
Okay. Oh, that's really good. Especially
Mhm.
if you're narrating, you can't guess as you're Oh, wow.
I mean, I
Okay, now
knew,
I'm really
but during
like
play,
you knew, but
if it's a
yeah.
mystery, you got to know who did it. You know, you can't
Mhm.
just like stumble your way through. So I went to find out who did it, but then all the way through, I'm like, oh, oh. So
Okay. Like you sold me on that one so hardcore. As soon as we're done, like I'm going to pre-order it and then I'm going to review it on my channel because I need to listen to this book.
okay. Well, let me know when when you've listened to it. I'll be eager to hear what you think.
Yeah. But just to wrap us up, thank you so much, Andy, for deciding to come on my channel, letting me interview you. You have been awesome. If you ever want to come back on my channel, the invitation is always open to you. You are an amazing narrator, and I love all the books that you narrate. And I will leave all Andy's social media links and all information, and as well as the Lyric Instagram page and all those links down in the description box down below. So definitely make sure that you go follow Andy and her audiobook production company as well. And I'll catch you guys with a brand new video.